challenges, some technical challenges and difficulties, but also lockdown restrictions, which is also a challenging aspect when you run a residency program. But they managed to not lose their creative vision. So thank you for that as well. And last but not least, I also would like to thank Tomasz Danielis for being advisory artist and accompanying this residency program. Now I would like to introduce Dalia Ottmann, the moderator of the discussion on queer hacking. And she will then step in after the presentation of the residency process. Dalia Ottmann is the project manager of GEAM, an Arabic website focusing on gender, sex, and sexuality from the Goethe Institute with the perspective to be independent in the future. Prior to joining the Goethe Institute, she was the gender and tech project coordinator at Tactical Tech, where she also conducted research on online gender-based violence. Ottmann was a research fellow at the Harvard Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society and a visiting scholar at the MIT Center for Civic Media. She spends her time these days exploring topics intersecting between technology, feminism, and care. I now wish you a nice evening. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Marcus, for that introduction. And I believe now we will have a presentation by Richard.
Yes, hello. So first of all, let me introduce us. I'm Richard Guzman. He is Emma with me. We were collaborating together in other residence with the Now robot. Maybe first of all, it will be good if I say thank you to our company institution, which support us in this other residency. There's the Goethe Institut, then Sensorium First Festival and Slovak Centrum of Design, and also all team which were helping us to lead us to the end. Also Tomasz Danielis, the cooperation artist, which was also very helpful. And also we want to thank you to research team, especially to Zlatica Jursova-Zacharova. She was doing research program with the kids. Then also with Dusan Kostrup and Václav Bašľuk. So maybe I will turn on our presentation. We'll share our screen. Host disabled participant sharing screen. So you have to, I think you have to enable it, because I think it's, okay. I can start. Okay. So the name of the residency was Beyond and AI Learning with the Robots. And here we are when we started this project. I'm in the middle and Emma on the left and Tomasz Daniel is on the right. And I think this was the first day when we seen the NAR robots. So we try to you can say, get him on the feet. Yeah. Maybe if I shortly introduce us as an artist, we are conceptual visual artists. We can say Emma is currently studying in the Academy of Fine Art in Bratislava, and I was already finished in the same school in a Fine Arts Academy. I think we are mainly focused on the same basic principles in visual conceptual arts, which is technology and and how is the technology related with the social skill and humanization with the technology. So that was the basic, like shortly introduce ourselves. And when we're speaking about now residents and with now robot, the now robot, when we first of all see him, he has some abilities, how he can move or how he can react to us. But he has also something what we want to push him forward. So for example, we want to see him as a human being or as a real artificial intelligence with self-being or self-thinking, as a self-thinking person or personality. This was one of the first meet with the kids, which were make in the lab and Slovak Center of Design. And the basic of this research or art process, we will analyze the behavior of the children in the creative process. And each of the children, they wrote in the letter how they want to see these robots in the future, what they want to do with them, what they want to, what's their imagination in the future, like cooperation or the living with this with the synthetic I think intelligence or organisms. Yeah. When we're talking about this society and this example, what's happened currently now, I think these questions are already not noticeable in the social media, games, communication, entertainment, and this already happened. Because AI is already integrated in our lives. You know, we can see how for example, the Siri or Google and Alexa is already right now some kind of artificial intelligence which basically learn in our inputs more and more. So this is like already begun. So the question is how this affect our society in the future. But the most important finals from this conversation was that we are afraid from that what we didn't know. But if we know it better and better, we can already, our fear goes away. So that was one of the conclusion which we made, that we have to make more and more education about the machines and what they can do and what they couldn't do, because in the end we make these machines, we make this consciousness, and until now it is our responsibility what we can what will be in the future. So is our responsibility what will do these robots later in the future. So after this presentation, you will see one video. And this video is like is like a fiction. It's like a fiction. What this robot will do in the very near future. But we was represent this robot as Adam, who was live with us, and we were going with him in the nature. He seen first time the nature with us. He goes shopping in one discount food market. It was very funny, and we tried to go with him in the cafeteria, but he didn't like it, I think, because he didn't bring that coffee. But it was actually a very good coffee, so I don't know what was the problem with him. But yeah, this is in the city center. So we were trying to make this discussion, and in the end we have also a website Finnish which has all the information and all the another research from our scientist group of the people. Currently now is in the Slovak language, but we're working on the English soon, so we can later send you this link where you can see all the information. So I think now can be time to Emma, if you want to add some words to me, you can say something now in Slovak, I guess.
Myslím si, že si povedal všetko, čo som mala zatiaľ v hlave. Ja si myslím, že môžeme prejsť na to video, ak sa môžeme aj ja keď tak doplním neskôr k tomu videu.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe you can run the video now, and we can continue later. I'll stop the share.
Hi, Emma.
Hello, how are you?
I am fully charged, but I still don't have an energy.
Why?
Don't know, I think that people can't really understand my feelings.
Do you understand your feelings?
And do you?
Yes, I do, but I'm a living being.
How you can prove that I am not alive?
I can't, but can you prove that I can feel emotions?
Sure. I can even make you feel emotions. I can even clean this street.
That was great.
Thanks. Call me Master now.
Do you like your name?
I was thinking that I will prefer something else. Maybe Adam will be good.
Why Adam?
Because like Adam, I am first of my kind.
Okay, Adam, when is your birthday?
I was created at SoftBank Robotics in Paris at year 2006. But I don't know exact date.
Do you think you will live forever? Do you think you will live forever?
My existence can be prolonged as far as I know.
Do you feel as a human?
I have head and 2 arms, but I don't feel like one.
Will robots replace us?
I am here to serve humans, but I can make my own decisions. I am your friend. You can trust me.
I'm going to take something to eat. Are you hungry?
Not in this moment. My battery is in a good condition. Thanks.
Do you also like another type of robots?
I like any kind of intelligent species. But birds are my favorite. They are free and wild creatures. I would like to be like them.
Why do you think you are not free? Why do you think you are not free?
Because my life support is depending on energy and I want to be independent. I would like to grow up and live forever.
Thank you so much for that. I don't know, Richard, if you want to say a few closing words or.
Yeah, and I think that's basically it. It was pretty think that we were working with this robot. Of course, it has some limitation. But I think all technology has this limitation. But it was a good experience because now we know how we will or what we will do in the future. I guess when we want to change some things. So yeah, basically that's it.
Well, thank you very much for that. For sort of the presentation and for this really interesting video as well. And hi, everyone. I'm really happy and glad to be a part of this sort of session. It's really quite impressive to see sort of the photos, but the results of this kind of residency and how you've been working with youth. And as you said, Richard, this is technology that we make, and it's really interesting to see how we explore the relationship between humans, specifically youth, and robots and artificial intelligence. And it perhaps maybe allows us to reflect on our own understanding of ourselves, not just overcoming the fear of the unknown, but also see something in ourselves in the technology that we create. Obviously, it would have been great for us to be together actually and meet in one place and chat and face to face. I would have loved to actually make it to Bratislava. But unfortunately, with this pandemic and the restrictions that we're living through with the social distancing and the fact that we have to stay at home, we were just talking at the beginning of the session how we're all living under different restrictions. And it's all sort of pushed us far away from each other and towards the virtual world. And I can't count the many hours I've spent on Zoom calls alone in the past year. At the end of the day, what does this mean for us? How has this past year affected us and our use of technology, not just how technology develops, but how we've actually adjusted to that use, our presence online and what role it's played in how we express ourselves and our identities and also simple needs. With this virus, I guess we're having to face a lot of our own anxieties. And anxieties around our own health, anxieties about jobs, about the future. There's a question mark of when this virus is going to end. And we've realized and we've seen how our lives have completely changed as a result of it. And as we struggle to be together physically, we're learning or perhaps relearning how to adjust ourselves, our relationships, and how we navigate even intimacy, both offline and sort of how, at the end of the day, the offline is a continuation of the online and vice versa. One thing I have to say, I think about a lot and more so recently is sort of in these moments of uncertainty that we live in, how do we practice care? How can we turn to our own communities, our families, our friends, our loved ones, for care. And now, because we rely on technology so much and the virtual, we, I guess, have to pause and ask ourselves, what is the role it's playing in providing spaces for care, but also for us to just be, to exist, and for our identities as well. In the early days of the internet, and maybe Cornelia and Vale will say a little bit about that, there was a lot of hope for this technology to be in an inclusive space where being present meant that we are able to show our diversity. And we believed that it was a place where we can explore our identities as well. It was a place of debate, especially social debate. And in today's session, we're talking about the intersections between feminism, sexuality, and technology. And to go back to the identity, parts of our identity is definitely linked to our genders and our sexualities. And we use technology that has not only been created, but also controlled by others. And so we work hard and we fight hard to carve out spaces for ourselves, to allow our voices to rise and for us to express ourselves and these identities freely. And I love that the robots was talking about freedom, and we're hoping that we're trying to carve these spaces for us to speak freely, to express our identities. Take, for example, the project I manage, which Marcus presented really quickly. It's an Arabic language website focusing on issues related to gender and sexuality, and it's called JIM. And one of our main goals is to highlight stories and voices that exist in our societies, but aren't necessarily part of the mainstream narrative. It's not something that's out there in the public space. And through the work that we do, we try to create a space where people can express themselves, their gender identities and sexualities. And just like JIM, we find different formats and outlets to express ourselves, such as artistic expression and how we're able to critique our realities and push technology even further and critique the technology that we interact with. And through art, we make ourselves heard and we make our diverse identities present. So what are some of these examples? Well, today we have two formidable speakers with us who have done some great things and have been thinking a lot about the issues that I just talked about. So I'd like to introduce them to you. First of all, we're going to hear from Dr. Cornelia Solfrank, who's an artist, researcher, and educator living in Berlin. Recurring subjects in her artistic and academic work in and about digital cultures are artistic infrastructure, new forms of political self-organization, authorship and intellectual property, and techno-feminist practice and theory. Then we'll hear from Vale, who is a feminist activist and writer. Her interests are the intersections between internet rights, sexuality, LGBTIQ, and women's rights. And the transformative power of technology from a feminist intersectional perspective and practice. As such, she explores the internet poetically, politically, and practically, and advocates for the feminist internet. So we're going to start off with Cornelia. And if you have any questions, please write them in the chat. We'll be able to take it, and we'll start the conversation once the talks are done. So Cornelia, on to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dalia, for the very lovely introduction, and also for Lucia for the invitation to the Sensorium Festival, and not at least to Goethe Institut for hosting this event tonight. It's a great pleasure to be here and to hear also all the speakers, and I'm really looking forward. I already have some questions about the robot, about Noah or Adam. And I'm really looking forward to our discussion later. For the presentation today, I suggested to speak about some aspects of my practice and introduce a few framing concepts, but I will mainly focus on one project because I'm in this business of cyberfeminism and technofeminism for exactly 24 years now. And as you can imagine, there have been a lot of projects and activities, and it's always good to focus on one, and then we can maybe branch out a little bit. So before I introduce my work, I would like to mention that I have a long-standing relationship to Bratislava as well. Also, I have never been there personally. there has always been an active community of net culture activists, starting in the late 90s with the Burundi collective, who later in 2002 started to run the Multiplace Festival for 15 years, which was very important with a lot of venues all over Europe. And it now continues to live as an artist-run server run by the Multiplace NGO. This server is located, I think, in Prague. It's the Sanchez server. Oh, I'm going to, by the way, share my screen because I have some info also put on the screen. So we start here. So here's these addresses that I mentioned for those of you who are in Bratislava and probably don't know about it. Please check it out. So it's the server, Multiplace server, and it also hosts one of my favorite projects, which is monoscope.org. I don't know if you're familiar with it. If not, check it out. And I really like this idea. And as Dalia said in the introduction, this notion of artistic and independent infrastructure and new ways of organization. So I would say this server is a perfect example for that. But the project I'm going to talk about today is Purple Noise. It's an interdisciplinary techno-feminist research group which uses real-life events to explore social media as the arena for large-scale political manipulation. So we have seen these sorts of manipulation during Brexit, during the US elections 4 years ago, and as we now know from the Cambridge Analytica scandal, there has been a whole series of interventions into democratic elections and polls. So the realm in which we are acting are social media, which in itself is quite remarkable, as net activists usually try to avoid and stay away from these commercial platforms for obvious reasons. But when we realized how powerful these platforms have become and how much they actually inform all our realities, with half of the world population regularly using them, with often no other access to the internet, we understood that in order to really explore and get a better understanding of the dynamics, it is necessary to get involved and to get one's hand dirty. As you may know, a lot of activists who are critical about social media simply say, oh, we just stay away. So we have nothing to do with it. But I think this is an attitude which no longer is enough. Before I go deeper into our activities, I would like to put the work we do with Purple Noise in the trajectory of my long-standing work on cyberfeminism and technofeminism. After all, we call ourselves techno-feminists. So what does that mean? And why techno-feminism and not cyberfeminism? Techno-feminism is a term that was coined by Judy Weitzman in her book of the same name in 2004. And the concept basically denotes speculative and queer positions that both in theory and in practice question the coded relationship between gender and technology. In particular, techno-feminism is interested in examining how gender relations and the hierarchy of sexual difference influence scientific research and technological invitation, and how the latter in turn influence the constitution of gender, which of course is also related to what we have heard about the work on the robots. So the central claims of techno-feminist thought are first that technology is never neutral, and second, that technology always is a highly gendered field. So this may be a very broad definition on the one hand, while it insists on the gender aspect in all issues related to technology. And of course, the practices related to this concept can be manifold. If you are interested in exploring this in more detail, I recommend to have a look at this book, a book that I edited 2 years ago, The Beautiful Warriors. It's the book brings together 7 current techno-feminist positions from the fields of art and activism. And in very different ways, these 7 texts expand the theories and practices of the 90s cyberfeminism and thus react to new forms of discrimination and exploitation. Gender politics are negotiated with reference to technology, and questions of technology are now combined with questions of ecology and economy. The different positions around this new techno-eco-feminism understand their practice as an invitation to take up their social and aesthetic interventions and to join in, to continue the work and to never give up. So the term techno-feminism serves to designate these very diverse practices, but also through to this proximity. In the book, I try to bring them in contact and encourage exchange. And one example is that I included in this book a text by Havale, who is my fellow speaker tonight. And her text that she conceived with, I think, about 50 other women in a number of workshops on the feminist principles of the internet is one example of the text. But there is a few others in different fields, art and activism, which I will not go into detail at the moment. Also, I would like to, but I'm afraid we don't have time for that. So I really recommend you to download the book. It's on the website of Minor Compositions and Open Access. So you're welcome to download it. If you have any complaints about it or suggestions, please do not hesitate to get in touch. But I would like to come back now to Purple Noise. As I already said, it's about a critique of social media, and the question is, how are we doing that? So underlying our work is the assumption that virtual space and physical space are no longer separated spheres, but as are a continuum. Christina Grammatikopoulou, one of the authors in the book, calls that in the continuum an expanded space, and we are exploring what the dynamics between those spaces are. Our inventions always, therefore, involve an online component, a social media component, of course, and a component in physical space, as, for example, public space, as in the street, as you can see on this photo. So I will talk about a few of our interventions that we did, but basically when we started to investigate social media and the dynamics, we were kind of trying to reverse engineer how this field actually works. And of course, as we all know, meanwhile, the hashtag is a very important feature. We have become familiar with that, and there are more or less famous hashtags. So hashtags are always part of our campaigns. Another feature are memes. Memes are ironic and often iconic small media units, often combinations of text and image. So we also try to create something like a meme. Also, I have to say, it's something you cannot really plan or engineer. There's always a moment of unpredictability in what goes viral or not. But you will see our suggestions. And of course, a coherent visual language is important. So campaigns or associated and related actions are easily recognizable. And of course, catchy slogans are very important. So these are some of the basic elements. Here is, for example, our Instagram account. And we launched our work in September in 2018 with an invitation. We got an invitation to take part in the City of Women Festival in a city called Esslingen in the south of Germany. And for that, we really focused on this aspect of exploring the relationship between protest in the street and its representation online. So what we did is that we basically, there was already planned a big demonstration, a women's demonstration as part of the festival. And what we did is basically that we hijacked this festival with our symbols, with our banners. We had created a large number of these demo banners, a series of hashtags, for example, I make noise or purple noise and a few others, as you will see. And we handed these banners out to the people who were already participating in the demonstration. And we wrote a manifesto, our first manifesto, which I will show you in a minute. And so what happened is that these kind of banners and signs and hashtags were carried by people all over the demonstration. And we had a photographer following and a filmmaker, and they were editing photos and video material that they put on our social media. So in the end, it looked like that the whole demonstration was about purple noise and about our activities. So that's why we call it a hack of this demonstration of this festival. So here, one thing that is part of our visual language are these strange symbols. They somehow might remind you to gender symbols. And when we started to do research with purple noise, we realized that there is actually a table with sort of 36 official gender symbols at the moment. And we were wondering, so why is it 36? And also we had the impression, if you know, like engineering, when you know floor plans, you know, for electrical installation, they were some of these symbols you find on them, they look very similar. So we decided we take the liberty, the freedom to just make random symbols that always have this circle in the center, and then we attach whatever. And we make free variations of these gender symbols because there is not really a reason why we should limit them to 36. So one of our actions in the street were that we handed out just paper pieces with rings, and people could paint on and explain, could create their own gender symbols and explain what they mean. So here is one of them so that you get an idea. So it's unlimited, the options of gender symbols, basically. So that's part of the visual language. Here is the first manifesto that we also handed out during this demonstration and that we read out. If you want to hear and see the original material, you can go on our social media sites and also on our website, purplenoise.org. There will also be, I think on the next page, yeah, here's our social media accounts. So what we said basically, or what we tried to express in this first manifesto, what we tried to do is to kind of make a connection between what makes social media work on a very deep level, which is an affective level in the end. That's why it's so powerful, because it connects to people's fears, angers, frustrations. And as we've seen in research, that all these negative emotions are driving social media much more than positive ones. So it's important to not just say, oh, it's bad, it's not cool to use social media, but to understand why people actually do it, what it does to them, and to get a better understanding of this deeper level. So that is what we are trying to do with what we try to express in this manifesto, to address this sort of desire that someone, you know, understands there is this deeper feelings that you would like to connect to. I don't read that out at the moment. You will all find that online. So that was the first action. And of course, we had flooded our social media accounts with photos and videos and material. And after that, we got an invitation from Transmediale in 2019 And for that, we at Transmediale we did two things. We did a workshop, and we did a performance at the opening night. The title of the both were "Opting Out is Not an Option." That's already what I kind of indicated in the beginning when I said, you know, just living away social media or trying not, you know, thinking it's enough not to have a Facebook account is not enough. So we cannot actually opt out of these sort of systems anymore, really. So we have to face it where we are. And to address all these issues, we always go with, as I said before, with certain visual languages and memes. And the meme, what we decided, or what we try to make into a meme, and we're still working on it, is the feelers. And feelers, these things that certain animals have on their head. And we got feelers from the last book from Donna Haraway, where from the Camille stories, where one of the main characters of the book, she could decide at a certain age what kind of features she would like to add to her body. It's kind of a fiction, science fiction story. And she decided for feelers, because these feelers would enable her, it would kind of give her an extra sensorium. So she could sense certain things that people without these feelers cannot. And I think this is something that we really liked as an idea. And we liked that it has this kind of iconic nature that is very playful, and at the same time you can address through these feelers a lot of interesting issues. So in our workshop we did we had a lot of material. We invited people in, and it was basically a tinkering workshop. So we built all kinds of feelers, which first generation of feelers technically were not very sophisticated, I would say, but they were kind of funny. And we also had a biologist joining us in the workshop, which was quite interesting, because he was able, you know, to kind of make this kind of speculation of, or the basic question was, what kind of sensorium do we think we are lacking at the moment? What is the desire? What would we like to be able to sense? And put this thing into the feelers as a fantasy and tell stories about it. So what we did at the opening, we presented all our many feelers to the audience, and this is a huge audience at Transmediale openings. It's thousands of people, and they could select. They could select the feelers that they like best, and then we interviewed them about what they actually are sensing now with these feelers, so that they could kind of make this projection. So of course it's fun, but it has this double level, and we managed at this opening night at Transmediale to make about 100 live interviews that were all live broadcasted into the internet. So I'd like to come to the last project, actually, which is the project that we did last year on May Day, 1st of May. We were thinking of what we would like to do something on May Day. And of course, because we're interested in demonstrations in the street, in the representation of these. And we were thinking of what can we do? And we already were basically in the middle of the first lockdown. And back then, Corona was very fresh and very unknown, and it was all very weird. At the same time, it was clear that it had also a very strong media component, and so we were trying to address it, and we came up with a May Day action that was running under the hashtag techno-feminist-care. For that purpose, we created a new gender symbol, which you can see on this slide, which slightly might remind you of a virus, which has become very popular recently. And we wrote a new manifesto, and the manifesto, and we also before May Day, actually the day before, we sent out a call, and it's maybe something I forgot to mention so far, is that we always try to involve other people as much as possible and kind of create frameworks or environments where people can come in and kind of create their expressions within these frames. And also the group itself, I called it group, but we are not actually a fixed group. We are not a collective, but it's people, if say people saw us at Transmedia or whatever, people say, well, we would like to collaborate. Can we collaborate? People are coming in and joining for specific actions and leaving again, because, you know, all our lives are very complex and not everyone can commit for a real collective at the moment. So that's a very interesting aspect for me. Also with Purple Noise, as was said in the introduction, I'm interested in new forms of organization, and what we are trying to do with Purple Noise is to really to live and experiment with a form of organization which is in a way which creates an environment which is safe, and people feel they can be open and really contribute something, and at the same time does not pressure you into a total commitment. So kind of find this flexibility between the actual needs that people have in their life to connect to others, but not completely lock you up into one group. So that is not always easy, but it's part of you know, it's like an underlying level of Purple Noise, apart from all this specific intervention I've been talking about. So when we thought about techno-feminist care, we had a lot of discussions and read a lot of, you know, there was a lot of discussion also online going on. It was a lot of, interestingly, philosophers and people who professionally explain the world. It was almost only men who kind of very quickly had theories about Corona and the pandemic and so on and so forth. So we try to respond, to digest, but also to react to this. So we came up with this manifesto, which has different paragraphs under the title: we care for, we know, we need, we love, we hate, we don't mind, we are afraid of, and we demand. And again, I will not read it out to you. And what may be also an interesting aspect about this, we published it on May Day. We also published it together with an online pad, where the address of an online pad, where we invited people to edit it, to suggest things, to add things, or to comment or whatever. So it should always be in a fluid process. But that was a way for us how we try to respond to the situation, which was still very unclear. And what is important, I think one important aspect was, of course, it was the big question was, how can we care for each other, for our community, for our family, but also how can we care for the people who are not part of our community, who are not part of our family. You know, so it was like there was a lot of things coming up that were then, again, we thought we need to be questioned. And that's all something that we try to build into this manifesto. Maybe to end, or maybe I would like to read out the last paragraph. What we actually demand is transformative responses to the crisis, using the huge public spending to create sustainable solutions, not to support obsolete extractive industries, people to take responsibility. We demand governments to provide for new frameworks, to learn what our needs are, to adjust our lives to our needs. We demand better lives with less consumption, a revealing of invisible labor. We demand to leave no one behind, and our representatives to think ahead and take risks. So, and to take risks instead of reestablishing the old normal. We demand solidarity on all levels, local, international, and global. We demand to combine joy and pleasure with sustainability. We demand techno-feminist care. So it was kind of interesting because we wrote that for May Day a year ago, and you could say it's how old is it now? 9 months or something. It's still quite. It works still quite well, I have to say. And we're trying, or we have been trying to do an additional work around it. One thing that was part of the May Day action was that we created a mask. Of course, it was the first time that Germans had something to do with mask in public space. And everyone went hysterical, and it was like this thing. So we also wrote a little text about masks, and we created these masks that people could download the symbols from our website. And what you can see on our Facebook, we have a collection of people that created their own masks with the techno-feminist care symbol, and we're putting that back on our Facebook account. But what we did is it was May Day, it was this day of protest, but we could not go in the street. So what we did is we did an online demonstration, and the way we did it is not that we actually collected real people to assemble in virtual space, but we created 1,000 faces with artificial intelligence, and photoshopped our masks on their faces, and we flooded social media with these faces. So if you have a closer look, you can have a look in our Instagram, you will find all the faces, and some of them intentionally always, if you have looked at artificial intelligence creating faces, there often are artifacts or things that don't belong to a face or look weird. We intentionally left it to have this kind of a little hint where these faces come from. So it was very important so that they kind of look like real people, but actually aren't. So that was our May Day demonstration. And I have to see, maybe, to end with, I tried really not to be too long today, to end with a few ideas about what really drives us. As I said, we are all exploring, we are very much at the moment interested also in this notion of micropolitics, which is the idea of not just looking at politics on what you can see on the kind of representative level, on the level of organizations, of parties, but to look at this affective level, the level that is laying behind all this, and it is driving actual politics. So we are interested in exploring ourselves. What is driving us? So it's the desire to fuck over social media, to bring down platform capitalism, to reconquer public space, to escape the social control exercised by monopolies, to refine political manipulation, to use affect in order to build the common, to turn power into care, to produce more just realities, to win the battle over Donna Haraway, which is a little insider joke, and to create new narratives about the future. The explosive mix of purple noise consists of real anger, ruthless action, social information, disinformation, technical intelligence, political radicalism, and true love. And this is how I would like to end. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cornelia, for that really interesting sort of themes and questions there. And speaking of questions, if you have any questions, please do type them in the chat box that you have, and we can ask them to the speakers later on. And from Cornelia, I'd like to move on to Vale, who's with us, if you'd like to take this on.
Hello. Wow, so many inputs. So many directions. Okay, so I'll try to share my screen, and while doing so, I hope that I will get some order. It's called colors. Colors of spaces, colors of skin, because we are so many people. So listening to Cornelia, but also catching the glimpse of the work that you have done, we are ourselves in our own bodies, in our, I would say for myself, in our little lives, intersection and crossroad, no? Of other reality, of other exploration. And the technology that it seems until a few months ago, even more elitarian, no? Or if you work at the intersection of technology and any issue, any social justice issue, if you consider yourself a feminist in tech, if you are an activist, whenever you go in spaces, in movement, in protest, it seems that technology, it's really the last or the less important thing, because people have issues that are so pressing. Is it the food? Is it the health? Is it the house? And then the pandemic came, and all of a sudden, we realize what we knew before, some of us more, some of us less, that we are already in the cyborgs, no? We are already, everyone, mediated by technology in our little, very little space as in the global. Because I cannot think of one action or one protest that I've done without being also on some Facebook, Telegram group, on some Google spreadsheet or whatsoever, of being mediated by this little machine that record us and walk with us, memorize for us. And so we are already cyborg. But who's cyborg? No? It's interesting, the contrast. If you look at my face, it's a white face, no? Middle-aged face. If you look at the image I'm sharing, it's another space, another way, another body. And I wanted to show this specific site because skin stories are at the intersection of disability, sexuality, and gender, of an understanding of queer. And I think it's important that when we talk about imaginary, we try to push ourselves and we think of the many other different imaginary that there are, of the many other bodies. Bodies that mediated by technology can be and can interact with realities. Body that because of the technology can be excluded, because regardless of where we are in the world, regardless how many devices and which broadband we have, technologies define us. Technology is interconnecting us. Technology, that if we have or not, is designing us. And I'm saying this because I'm part of a group, I would say, a group, I mean, in the best possible, that it's global. I work in an organization. In the last years, I have sometimes spent more time in global so-called spaces, in conference and spaces that were focusing on technology, together with my friends, which most of the time have not this pale, white, middle-aged face. And why is important? It's important because, and I hope that you can see also, can you see my screen? So it's important to understand that we really needed to acknowledge that imaginary had already hacked the space, and that a queer imaginary exists, and that a queer imaginary had forced itself against all odds on all these spaces that Cornelia was defining as a platform capitalism, no? Those space of the mainstream. If you are on Instagram, if you are on Twitter, and for the ones that were on Tumblr, the kind of images are more like this, no? They are very different. And I feel that it's really important that we come back to understand which bodies are represented where, which voices are represented where. And in a space that is mediating of technology, which algorithm prevent some bodies and some voices not to be seen. When I was thinking about this short conversation, I was thinking of a title, a guiding path. I was thinking from dark to rainbows. And not because it's beautiful, but because if I have to position myself at the beginning of last year, if it was not for the what I call queer aesthetic, but people can call in many other ways, and this what I'm showing now, it's a zine that had been done physically, analogly in the end of the 2019, and now is accessible online on the Internet Archive. If there were for this way of telling story, this way of mixing content and images, I would not have survived. Because in all this little thing, in all the way in which art and activism and social justice come together, I find I find the words that I don't know how to pronounce. I find resonance. And it's important that we understand that internet and the space as a visual space really need this kind of intervention, because otherwise it becomes really boring. Otherwise, we again go back into the one image, the one story. So for me, when we talk about queering, hacking, when we talk about artificial intelligence, it's also how to understand and how to trick this artificial intelligence to follow a specific way of thinking, a mainstream that is inherently white, patriarchal, capitalist, terribly positioned in whiteness. And I'm saying this as a European, as a person living in Bosnia, where at 300 kilometers from here, the European Union prevent refugees and stop them from their right to a just life. And it's the European Union that is preventing for nothing, just because there is no need of having someone else in Europe, because the white Europe know everything. And it's really important to them that we connect all the dots. And that's why those colors, those bodies, those other words, an English that is not with the accent of Oxford or with the correct grammar, that has the accent of entire continent that had been colonized but had been able to reinvent themselves so many times that we need really to learn. It's really important that we understand why it's important that the imaginary, why it's important the translation of all these words, arts in all those spaces. The ones that are very streamlined, like the Instagram, the Face, and the one like in this zine that are self-managed, And of course, and please, Daria, if give me a sign 1 minute before, because it's easy to go in a run. Whenever we act, think, occupy, we need our own theories, We need our own principle. And this has come to the feminist principle of the internet. Because they are, for me, a compass. And again, a compass that understand what does it means being together, being diverse, being intersectional, not in a token, but really in a way of influence each other. And the feminist principle of the internet are one of the many projects, I would say, or manifesto that exist in the world. For me, they are central because I've been part of, because I have the possibility to contribute. And so I feel embodying them. But together with them, there are other manifestos. So I'm not talking here which manifesto is the stronger, the better, no? It's a mashup, because internet is a mashup space. But those principles are principles that have been created together, trying to help and articulate a way of being and interacting politically, but pragmatically, with all the various dimensions. And so you can see there are area around access, area around movement, area around economy. And this is the area that I want to just touch, the one around expression. Because in this year, last year, that looks like this year, because the pandemic is still here, what we have noticed and what we have seen, that our expression is more than ever at risk. So the expression of care that also Cornelia was talking before, it's an expression that it's also mediated by internet. If I want to have a practice, I will probably recur to internet. I will look into my stream to find a group that will suggest me books to read, movie to see, a stretch to do, a little group that we talk about something. And the expression need to be really strongly defended in this setting, because now that we are mediated by those wire and cable, a shutdown can happen. In Myanmar, shutdown happen. In Kashmir, shutdown are the norm. And we can be just cut off, and we can be really truly isolated in this our little cubicle, especially if you are in a physical lockdown that you cannot go out. So that's why it's important to have a compass, a mapping tool, but a tool that helps. And the feminist, the principle of the internet for me at this. They talk about the data, they talk about the artificial intelligence. They talk of the power of how we can amplify our voices. We claim the power of internet to amplify women's narrative. And when we say women's, we intend queer, we intend the larger and spectrum of individuals that recognize themselves in a feminism, in the intersection of feminism. So amplify women's narrative and lived realities. There is a need to resist the state, the religious right, and the other extremist forces who monopolize discourse of morality while silencing feminist voices and persecuting women's human rights defenders. This, it's a little compass. It's a drop that can help us understanding how to move. Expression. The right to sexual expression, because this is what I was talking about. All the image that we have seen have brought the body and the bodies in their own full self-expression and determination. And this is the novelty. We don't have only the skinny white model. We don't have only the high features, how you say, the vogue, the fashion that we will never. My body is aging. It's not aging like Jane Fonda. I don't have the money that she can invest on her body so that her body can pass through aging in a soft way. And there are people that have even less resources, physical or opportunity for their own bodies. So that's why it's important to remind that our ability to express and to show the spectrum of all our bodies is political, is what gives us the possibility to resist. Because care is really the possibility to see ourselves reflected, to see ourselves listened to see ourselves recognized through any means. And considering the conversation, I want just to share one principle that in feminist world, children as pornography are very sensitive issue. But this is also important because children are gender. Children are also queer. Children have various language. And sometimes when we talk about the new generation, we make them an abstract community. And so we call for the inclusion of the voices and experiences of young people in decisions made about safety and security online and promote their safety, privacy, and access to information. We recognize children's right to health, emotional and sexual development. which includes the rights to privacy and access to positive information about sex, gender, and sexuality at critical time in their lives. And I think that this is important because as we have done our exploration, it's important that the children will do their own exploration. I'll stop here because I would like to have a conversation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Vale. Thank you everyone for the really interesting talks. And it's quite interesting that Cornelia and Vale, you both sort of talk about hacking the algorithms and hacking the platforms through images or whether it's like images that are not necessarily mainstream, kind of white European or what we're used to seeing, or what maybe these platforms feed us, and or through visual symbols, like sort of hacking the gender symbols and creating our own symbols. It's quite interesting to see how visual plays a huge role here. And also the concept of the imaginary, the fiction, from creating sensors and feelers, and how we sort of hack our feelings and also, you know, try to imagine different spaces and different technologies. It's rather interesting. I really would like to open up for any questions if anyone would like to ask anything. We've also put the links for them for the manifesto, the most recent manifesto, the techno-feminist care, and the feminist principles of the internet. And Vale just also put a link for Skin Stories, which is stories about people with disabilities and sexualities, if I'm not mistaken. I think we've translated it some for Jim. So if anyone would like to ask a question. Cornelia, sure, you're.
I would like to make a comment. Maybe I think we will still engage with Vale in the course of the discussion. But to start with, I would like to ask a question to Richard and Emma regarding the robots, because you said something like, we are afraid of technology if we don't know how it works. Now I have an echo. How it works. Now I have an echo.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so you said something like we are afraid of technology as long as we don't know how it works, and that it's important to educate ourselves so that we understand that it's actually us who make these machines and we can influence what they do or how they operate. And I'm a bit skeptical about this because I have the opposite feeling. I have the feeling the more I know about technology, the scarier I become, because I start to understand the large scale, what is it? It's hard, I don't have the right word. I feel totally, often I feel very much trapped. I have the feeling it's very hard to, speaking about imaginaries, how do we get away from where we are, where everything is basically driven from big corporations and profit interests? They are driving the technology most at the moment, together with certain governments, and in particular all these big data issues that is all about harvesting as much data as possible to produce on this basis new algorithms and predictions. And that is something we cannot do as activists because we don't have access to big data, you know, like Amazon has or Google or so on. So the more I understand of how these big tech machineries work, the more afraid I get, I have to say. I don't know if you want to comment on this, but that was an idea.
Great. Do you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I try to. Yeah, I know what you said, and I have those concerns about the companies and especially these conglomerates and big international companies. I have also the fear about this. What will they do in the future with the AI and also this war tech machine, war tech robots? Everyone, we've seen these working robots in the internet. What all they can do. So yeah, you have reason to, or you have rights to be afraid. Yeah, but what I want to say is that only we, as a human being, in the end, we will be responsible for this. So every our action has some kind of ending. So in the end, we will be responsible for the destroying of our I think society, maybe perhaps, or we will destroy maybe our security or our behaviors and etc. and etc. So I think that was the main goals or main ends of what I want to say. So it is basically about that. So we, in the end, we will always be behind this. So and it's really that didn't it's really didn't important if this machine will do by their own consciousness, because we give them this consciousness as a society. So we are responsible as a society.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Vale may have a question. I'm honestly also curious. I carry the same skepticism, and partly because also who creates this technology, and this is something I alluded to in the introduction. It's like, who creates this technology and who controls it? And I'm curious actually how the youth engaged with this. It's interesting how technology is usually, like you mentioned Siri and Alexa, and we always hear female voices. But also it's interesting to see robots, maybe Adam or now is very much robotic, but then we see other robots that actually look like humans. So I'm curious how the youth, because this was a key part of the residency, is how youth engaged with this, how they reacted to this robot and how they felt, did they see reflections of or recognize themselves in this robot? Or did they feel like this was something that was quite foreign and felt that this was not something that was normal or something, in some way?
I'm not sure if I catch the first word of the question. If you ask about the reaction of the kids, okay. So I think it was a very mixed. Or maybe if Zlatica, I think I see her there. Maybe if she can speak about this little bit, because it was. She was research this with the kids, but for me, I think it was the answers was like various. It was like the question. The answer was from the one opposite side. Like I'm so afraid of this robot. I don't want to see them, and like put this thing away from us. On the other side, some kids, they said like, I love them. I want to be with him all the time. It's amazing machines. can we play with them? He can help me with my task in the school and everything like this. So it's really the various about. It's about what kind of children we speak and what kind of age we speak. So maybe Zlatica can say something more about this, because she read complete research about all these infos. So maybe I can give you word.
Yeah, of course. I was just thinking about it, and here were three groups, very different groups of children, and all these words, they were from different and separate kids. So we looked at the girls. The girls behave a little bit different than the boys. And this was maybe interesting, very interesting, because we called, the intern called the girls group, also the philosophical group. And this group asked about the behavior of a robot and asked about the personality. And we spoke about if the robot may be she or her, and all the girls said it's he, because he is, okay, it's not a living being, but is something like living being. It's a friend, and we have to speak with him like with a friend, etc. So this was a relationship. So we said this was a interaction, a very positive interaction. But this is also different between one girl. She was very afraid. At the first moment I spoke with her, she said, I'm afraid of robots and I don't know if I will handle it. After the first meeting, this girl said, oh, he was really cute and nice and I like it. But another girl, she was not afraid against a robot, but after the first meeting with robot and also after the second meeting with robot, and all the time she said, I don't want him. I'm afraid because he may kill me, he may do me something very bad, and maybe in the future he will take my position. And this was very interesting that the girl, and she is 12, is thinking about the future and losing the position in the social because of robot. So for us, for researcher, it was really very, very interesting point of view. And the second group, this was group of boys. And this group was very positive from the beginning against robot. This group was all the boys were high intelligence, and they were in contact together just before with the robotics. They knew about robot, they studied before they came in the first meeting with a robot. Now they really studied. How is he looking for, what he is doing, how, and also the language. They started to speak in the English language with the robot, because they were reading, the robot now is speaking English. So they wanted to make some connection between them and the robot, but also all the time. It was very interesting because the behavior was showing us they would be like to have some contact or relationship with the robot. But what was very interesting, at the moment we started to take some dialogue with them, they said, okay, we are people and we are able to program them. We are able to manipulate the robot. And the robot is not dangerous for us because he's only a toy. I'm the one who is able to control what is the robot doing and how is he behaving, because I'm the controller. I need to learn to program the robot, and then I'm able to control the robot. But also with the girls, the discussion was running the way that they are not able to control a robot, and the robot may do something to them because they are not so capable in the technologies. They are not interesting. So this was really interesting. I know it's girls and boys group, but it was not only girls and boys group. In the philosophical group, we had also 2 other boys, and they also show the more interactional and the more understanding for robot as a human being. The second group, the high intelligence boys, and all these boys had diagnosis of Asperger, so it's autistic behavior. So all these boys were able to program the computer and having fun with him, but not like a human being, only like a toy. So this is maybe how it was interesting for you to understand why they think that is not the problem with the robot, and why they think that they can command it and they can control it because of this differencing of this group.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Thank you so much for sort of telling us a little bit more and giving us information about this research. It's really interesting to see how sort of the differences in the reactions and maybe a reflection of the realities they live in, of how they approach technology, how be it whether it's programming because they're used to engaging with technology or vice versa. And it's interesting, and Cornelia, you say this, it's like, why do they conceive robots in binary? It's really interesting to see also how they approach the robots and think of gender, and also the fact that you divided the groups into separate genders to have the kind of binary between girls and boys. It's rather interesting to see that. So yeah, it's interesting to see. I don't know if there was attempts to think of a gender beyond that, because we're talking about gender and different identities, and Vale, I think you also had a question. So we have 2 questions. One is like, why do we conceive robots in binary through categories? And the other is from Vale, were the children in this kind of research chosen randomly? And I believe the ages were from 10 to 14, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yes, it was really difficult to find some kids they can or be able to go and meet now because of all this pandemic situation. So the one group were children from normal classes, and I was speaking with the teacher, and also the teacher is very humanistic and very philosophical, and so it was really reading and writing group. So she took the best girls from her classes and 2 other boys. And second group, it was a special TUC group, and I worked together with the school for children with high intelligence. And I know that in these schools are a lot of children with Asperger syndrome. And because we know from the website of that the robot is special for educational, for older people, and also to help children with autistic diagnosis. So it was very interesting for us to take this group, because this is really so a little bit, and we had the hypothesis that this group would be different from the normal group and normal children. It was really so, because also boys that are from the normal classes, they were more able to understand the robot now as a person, to have him as a friend, not as a toy. And also these kids from the Asperger class or Asperger group looked at the now as a machine. So they said, okay, maybe in the future, if he will be better, it would be interesting to have him as a friend, but now he is something like kitty or something like this, a beautiful toy. So this was really a big difference in this understanding.
Interesting. And so, and this robot didn't have a gender for this group. They basically saw it as an object, as a machine.
Yes. They never ask if he is he or she, and they don't understand why we have to speak about something like this. But the girls were different, and the one girl said, "Oh, it would be nice. The now will be her, or I would be like to have a robot like her that I am able to speak with her." And the other girl said, "Oh no, maybe for me it would be better if the now robot is he, because then I can speak with him, and he would be a friend for me." But all kids in this normal group said the robot isn't it, because at the moment we speak about robot like it's a toy, it's a machine. So they wanted that the robot is he.
Interesting. And that sort of takes me back to the why we, in most cases we conceive of robots within binaries or gender binaries specifically. Either it is doesn't have a gender or genderless because it is a machine, it is not, or we look at it, and I invite anyone who would like to talk about it. I mean, this is a question for everyone. I think if anyone would like to speak about it and maybe think about why we kind of have that reflection, but also why we're stuck in that binary, even though we're moving in many places, the conversation has moved beyond that binary. I don't know, Vale, are you raising your hand? Would you like to say something?
Yeah,
go for it.
It's very interesting. I'm reading a book, CAD work by a disabled activist, originally from Sri Lanka, but in Canada. And she's neurodivergent, which is on the spectrum. And it's incredible, listening, the language is the one that define, but languages are norms, and norms are standard. They define the majority, Language and norms are the language of the majority. So anyone that is not in this line that you, Zlatica was saying, normal, And that's why we really are not so away. We are still in the binary. We are still projecting this rigidity. We are not able to move because I have a friend that defines itself as it. Don't use they, don't use he, don't use she, it's it. And it has a reason why, So I'm learning how to use it in this language that is not mine to make sure that I don't misgender, because it matters to it. So I find it's fascinating. I think that we didn't move, and that's probably because again we are still inscribed in that in this power, a power that is capitalist, patriarchal, traditionalist, that need this very stringent boxes in order to control us. Because if the norm would be set by the Asperger group, if they would set the norm, if we just flip the group and we say that the Asperger, it would be an it that has still to learn and to change. But because the norm are gendered boys and girls that live in a gendered world, they project their fear, their desire that comes from there. Because also you said the teacher choose the best. Who's the best? Which quality define the best? Best grade, the most, the one that read and study every day? Why the creative are not? Why the impatient are not the best? Because we need to be normate. We need to be stand and still. We need to be to do the thing that we are being asked to do in the way we've been asked to do. That's why we're still hacking queer, because queer is not the norm. Once that we are queer all, then the norm will come to hack. Thank you. It's absolutely fascinating. Thank you for the work that you have done, both the research and the artistic part.
Yes, maybe it's really interesting that the teacher was she. So she chose girls because maybe she can work better with girls. This is one possibility. And also she asked all children in the classes who would like to participate on this project. And the girls that are always participating on some activities of this teacher said, okay, we would be participate. So yeah,
it's quite interesting. Thank you. And I want to tap into something that you said, Vale, about us being stuck in sort of the kind of patriarchal notions and binaries and stuff, and how we're still stuck in that. But both you and Cornelia spoke about the imaginary, the fiction, and how we can actually hack and think beyond just our bodies, our typical bodies, but also genders. I don't know if either of you would like to say something about that, of experiences with using fiction in kind of taking us out and, you know, imaginary. Vale, you're laughing. Vale, you're laughing.
I'm a reader. Octavia Butler made me survive. What can I say? But not only. I feel that also Ursula Le Guin per se. I mean, you can have more mainstream or less, but I feel that sci-fi, and we go back again at language, what are the high literature, what is less high literature. But for me, having the possibility to read Octavia Butler, the parable of the sower and the parable of the talents, that 16 years ago was talking about now, and really take out my white spectacles and be immersed in a world that is truly different. Because the humanity that is there, it's all genders, it's all race, it's a mixture. And we needed to go in those places that experiment with bodies also, Bodies are not anymore the same, The two ends, if you go also in speculative native Indians, the body and being a disabled or that is not considered as in white culture, We are less. The concept of disabled had been brought by a culture. So I think that fiction, because when we read the story, we forget our rational self, we deep dive, and when we emerge, we are different, we have been transformed, because we didn't wear our shield, So I feel, I truly believe that only poetry can save the world. Because this is what we need. We need to get rid of ourselves in order to discover the many selves that we have. And sorry.
No, it's fantastic. I say poetry and the visual. I'm a visual person, so I love photos and visuals and symbols and stuff. And Cornelia, just you actually jumped in the chat. I was actually going to mention it as well. Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto that was written way back in 1985. I think this is also a really good piece of literature for people to acquaint themselves with. And just also, Marcus, you added something. I'll read it out for translation as well. Marcus added a comment to the notion of being stuck in the binary. Zach Blass mentions in the Contra Internet that the intellectual task of making thinkable that which is not only outside the internet, but also beyond the network form itself. How would you relate to this approach? So there's a question there as well, like taking from Zach Blass, in the Contra Internet, how would you look at the sort of, Marcus, do you want to say something about it?
Actually, it relates a little bit to what you asked with the imaginary. So combining somehow this speculative and sci-fi moment of cyber-feminism or techno-feminism, if I understood it right, with an activist approach. So being stuck within binaries is kind of the status current situation, but how to overcome that? How would you relate to this concept of this approach of trying to break the system or the kind of this the structures by going beyond and thinking something completely new, which is not yet thinkable? It's kind of sci-fi in itself, I suppose.
Cornelia, if you'd like to say something.
Yeah, that's why I posted this Donna Haraway Cyborg Manifesto, because that's also something she tried to formulate, not so much as poetry back then. It was, I mean, she's a scientist, she's a biologist, but she has always been, you know, on a mission to queer science and technology. So the revolutionary thing about this was to understand technology as a means to escape binaries that, in her understanding back then in 85, are so very much related also to bodies. I mean, that's a bit different now. We have a more expanded understanding also of queer bodies, but she suggested to use technology and especially the notion of the cyborg to escape a female or male connotated body and think of something beyond that. And that is something I've been trying since 85. And it's, it's the reason why it's so difficult is that you cannot decide yourself that you are leaving the norms, because the moment you meet another person, you know, you're confronted with these norms again. This other person will try to put you into some norms. So it's a constant negotiation with others. That's the one thing. And the other thing is that it's so deeply ingrained. So even if we desire to change it or to open up, it's not an easy task. It's a very hard task of unlearning, a way of unlearning that, again, we cannot do alone. So it needs spaces where we can do that. It needs other people with whom we can do that. And that is all kind of structures which are not there. You know, all the normal social spaces, institutions, schools, universities, workplaces, and so on. Therefore, they are not social environments where you're supposed to unlearn your social norms, you know, on the opposite. So that's why it's so important to think of and to conceive spaces and to make spaces. And this has probably been one of the early projections on the internet, on cyberspace in particular, you know, coming from cyberpunk and other sci-fi literature, that this is a space which is completely free and we can reinvent everything from scratch. And what happened is that we went into cyberspace and we kind of made it into, you know, we established the same norms than outside. That's something we know now. That's why this whole enthusiasm of 90s cyberfeminism looks a bit naive today. We know that we are somewhere else and that we missed maybe an opportunity, but we have to face it somehow. But I think that's the hardest thing to do, is to escape norms, all kind of norms, and also binary gender norms. It's a constant work. And yeah, I said it.
Yes, thank you, Cornelia. And definitely recommended read. Richard, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I want to add to the discussion something, because it was like really good discussion, because we choose this name of these robots because of something. We was talking about the existence. We was talking about faith. And I personally take inspiration from Christianity, and when I was thinking what are the first names in Christianity, I choose this name because of that, and it was kind of also provocation because we in the westward civilization, most of the people are Christians. So that's why I choose this name, because it's some kind of provocation, and this name should also evolve this discussion about this. So I'm really glad that you take this lead to forward to these discussions about these binaries and about these genders things. And what is really interesting, that also this SoftBank Robotics group, this company which developed this robot, they also put inside the really nice result. For example, if you ask a robot if he considered to be a man or a woman, he answered just I'm just considered as a robot, not just like her or she. So that's the really nice answer from them. So yeah, that's why we put Adam to him, because it has this background from the faded existence. So yeah.
It's interesting, and the robot is still programmed, I guess, by a human. So if there are any final questions, and if not, we can also wrap up on the notions of the body, the visual, and the imaginary, and how we can actually move beyond sort of the binaries. I don't know if you want to say any final words, or Marcus, Lucia.
Yeah, just my final words would be again, starting with the intro, that I would like to thank everyone for this evening's discussion, for the presentation of the residency, and for both of the inputs that were really beautiful and inspiring. And from my side, thank you very much. I very much enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. I don't know, Lucy, if you want to say anything.
Yeah, just the same. Thank you for accepting our invitations to contribute with your talks. It was super inspiring. I have a lot of thoughts to process personally. This is a very interesting topic. And, especially in these times when technology is the way how we live, how we build and maintain our social relationships, but also how we build our identities. And it's already difficult to kind of understand our identities without the technology, just in our bodies, right? And now like this kind of raises the complexity of the problem. So I feel these conversations are super important, and I really hope they will be possible to happen live soon again, because this is great, but we are obviously lacking a great dimension of what could follow up.
Okay, thank you. Well,
So thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Sensorium, and thank you, Goethe Institut in Bratislava for organizing this and bringing us together to be able to have this conversation. And I hope we have many more. And I guess I thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Richards and Vale and Cornelia for this. And I wish you a good night and stay healthy and safe.
Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
See you somewhere.
Yes, in the interweb.
In 10 years. Remember our faces. Bye.
Bye.
Lovely.